ABC 10 News at 7 starts now.
San Diego County's move to the most restrictive coronavirus tier could be the death of many local restaurants. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. The new restrictions, they kick in on Saturday. At that point, restaurants will be limited to outside seating only. Our ABC 10 News reporter John Horn explains why this time around will be especially challenging.
Breakfast Republic in the East Village just installed this covered patio, giving the restaurant an extra 30 seats protected from the rain.
But that doesn't help us if it's windy. That doesn't help us if it's freezing cold, even if we put out propane heaters.
Owner Johan Engman says the winter weather will make this next phase of the coronavirus era especially challenging. That inflamed by the fact that come Saturday, restaurants across the county will no longer be able to serve indoors as San Diego County enters the purple tier of coronavirus restrictions to combat increased spread.
If every single person that shows up before 9 a.m. wants to sit inside and they opt to not dine with us, that's a pretty big number if we lose everybody.
Engman's restaurant group, Rise and Shine, has spent tens of thousands of dollars outfitting its interiors for social distancing. Those investments now moot for at least the next 3 weeks. Meanwhile, staff hours are likely to be cut as capacity goes down. Overall, jobs in county restaurants down 17% compared to this time last year.
I don't make the rules. I try to follow them, but I think to shut down the restaurants again is not a good thing.
Engman declined to say just how much the pandemic has impacted his restaurant group's bottom line, but he did say it's not where they were in 2019.
If it was 100%, you wouldn't see this.
The restrictions take effect at midnight Saturday morning. John Horn, ABC 10 News.
And at least one restaurant owner is planning to defy the order to stop serving customers inside. Larry McNamara and his wife Debbie, they have owned Major's Diner in Pine Valley for 15 years. He says he takes coronavirus seriously, but takes issue with how health officials are now punishing businesses that are taking all the proper precautions.
We are over it. We can't do any more going backwards. We can't not and stay open and be a viable part of the community.
And he says if he gets fined, so be it.
The Air and Space Museum in Balboa Park is closing once again. The museum has opened and closed several times since the pandemic began. And this afternoon, it put out a statement saying that it will close this Saturday. Museum CEO Jim Kidrick says the Air and Space Museum can't move outside as required in the purple tier. And what's happening is, quote, not right. Kidrick says the open spaces, social distancing, and mask requirements have allowed the museum to operate safely. And tonight, some are arguing the damage to local businesses should outweigh the concerns of the virus. But infectious disease experts say that we can't just open everything back up. Our Jeff Lasky looks at how the county is trying to balance controlling the virus with keeping our economy going.
We've heard the consistent message from our county leaders every week since March.
Facial coverings, social distancing, avoiding large crowds and gatherings, those are the strategies. They sound simple, but they actually work.
And yet after all this time, it feels like we're still right where we started, with infections going up.
I think the technical term for being half on, half off lockdown for 8 months is this sucks. It sucks. Nobody wants to be doing this.
Dr. Rebecca Fielding Miller is an expert of infectious diseases at UC San Diego. She says it's not a mystery why cases are spiking again. The more people gather, the more the virus spreads.
The reality of it is indoor spaces with people talking without masks on are not safe. So I think that's really important to getting this under control.
She says stricter regulations are an important way to slow the spread of the virus, which San Diego did following spikes in April and July. But she says the herd immunity idea, that we should just open up and let the virus run its course, doesn't make sense. She says millions could die in America, and there's no guarantee the virus would go away, because we don't know how long immunity lasts.
It has really negative long-term effects. And so we would end up with extraordinarily high rates of disability and mortality, potentially for no gain at all, for people to just be able to get reinfected in 6 months. And so I understand the attraction, but it's also not viable.
Dr. Fielding Miller says the county and state have been taking half measures, trying to avoid a full lockdown and letting many businesses stay open. But that will only work if everyone is committed to be safe. Those same things we hear all the time.
We have to do what we know works to help decrease the spread of COVID-19.
Jeff Lasky, ABC 10 News.
Stay on top of any new developments with coronavirus by downloading the 10 News app. A free version is available in the App Store.
Your voice, your vote. Joel Anderson is extending his lead in the stunningly close race for the District 2 Supervisor seat. Yesterday, he led Steve Voss by just 7 votes, but after today's count, it's now up to 85. Both candidates are Republicans, so this race will not impact the balance of power on the board. The next update will be tomorrow after 5. California voters passed Prop 22, which reclassifies rideshare drivers as independent contractors. It's a win for companies such as Uber and Lyft. But as our ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer Dela Cruz explains, the legal fight against the companies is not over.
The legal battle over rideshare drivers did not end with the passing of Prop 22. The California Labor Commission is still suing gig companies for not following current law, which classifies drivers as employees instead of independent contractors. They're seeking billions for unpaid minimum wage, overtime, sick leave, and business expenses. Nicole Moore with Rideshare Drivers United says since Prop 22 is not retroactive, those lawsuits still stand.
This is about back pay that under the law as it was over the last 3 years, those drivers are still owed that money. It was $1.3 billion that were owed to those drivers. Half of that is damages, but the other half is just straight pay that under labor law, even really high earning drivers were owed.
Some drivers are currently on unemployment, like those with pre-existing conditions hoping to limit exposure to the virus. Moore says those protections won't last once the new law takes over.
If you don't have unemployment, that's when people become homeless. That's when people's kids go hungry. I mean, we need that safety net as workers.
As San Diego moves into the state's purple tier, Tanya Etzeval says she'll be driving less to limit exposure. She says the move for her own safety may prevent her from qualifying for benefits under Prop 22.
I will not be doing my 60 hours a week, so maybe 30. So I might be one of those people that don't qualify and will have to be on Medi-Cal.
Uber and Lyft both declined to comment on pending litigation. Uber did send us this statement, reading in part, "With this vote, drivers and delivery people will get what so many of you have been asking for, access to benefits and protections while maintaining the flexibility and independence you want and deserve." Jennifer Dela Cruz, ABC 10 News.
The San Diego City Attorney's Office tells ABC 10 News that Prop 22 does not make up for past harms, and they will continue to seek relief for workers who have been exploited.
California lawmakers will consider next year whether to decriminalize psychedelic drugs. A state senator from San Francisco plans to introduce a bill legalizing hallucinogenic mushrooms and other psychedelics. Last week, Oregon became the first state to legalize psychedelic mushrooms for mental health treatment in supervised settings. And State Senator Scott Wiener says that he's leaning toward taking the same approach here in California.
A pilot is expected to be okay after a plane crash in Fallbrook. That pilot told firefighters he had mechanical problems in the air and he had to make that emergency landing at the Fallbrook airport this morning. That small plane ran about 50 to 70 feet off the end of the runway. The pilot was taken to the hospital with just minor injuries. He was the only person on board at the time. The FAA is investigating the accident.
A man is in custody tonight after leading police on a 45-minute chase from the Talmadge area to Lindbergh Field. Well, the driver took off when police responded to a report that he was sitting in his car crying near Hoover High School. Even a spike strip could not slow him down as he drove through City Heights, North Park, Hillcrest, and downtown. He ended up pulling into the car rental center at the airport, startling many customers.
He crashed right into the curb, opened the door, ran out. Everybody ducked because we thought, guns were going to be pulled, and the cops came out and just started jamming inside. After a brief struggle, police took the man into custody in an ambulance.
And we have an ABC 10 News follow-up. The medical examiner has identified the remains found in a fire pit on Fiesta Island. A passerby found the remains of 79-year-old Elias Rodriguez October 29th. He was identified through dental records. Police are still not saying exactly what happened, but they do say that no foul play was involved.
This is Veterans Day, but because of the pandemic, the Fleet Week Parade took on a very different look this year. Instead of a usual parade down the Embarcadero, this year's event was a boat parade in the water. A swift boat from the Maritime Museum, manned by a team of veterans, led about 70 boats along the route through San Diego Bay. People watched from their cars, honking horns and waving flags as those boats passed by. Thank you to all of our veterans out there.